Hi, and welcome to The Regulated Mother. I'm your host, Afshan Tafler, nervous system resilience coach and mother of a hypersensitive, high-needs child. If you're raising a differently wired kid with PDA, autism, OCD, ADHD, or big emotional needs, this is a space for you. Here we talk about what most people don't, how it really feels, how your nervous system responds, and how to find your way back to calm, courage, and connection, even on the hardest days. You're not alone. Let's begin. Today's episode is for every mother who thought lowering demands for her PDA high needs child would make life easier, only to find yourself more overwhelmed or exhausted. If your child is calmer, but you feel more anxious, more depleted, more on edge, you're not imagining it. There are real biological reasons why your nervous system struggles when you start accommodating your child in the ways that they need. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through why lowering demands creates safety for your child, but perhaps more chaos inside your body, and how it activates all of your old conditioning and programming and survival responses. Why you end up holding so much frustration and fear inside, and how this combination leads to a very real and very painful kind of burnout. I see this all the time. And most importantly, I'm going to show you how to support your nervous system while supporting your child's. Okay, so if you've ever thought, why am I so wiped and falling apart even though I'm doing everything right for my child, then this episode is for you. So let's begin. So I didn't learn about PDA, which stands for pathological demand avoidance, during a single aha moment, okay? It was more of a slow unraveling. Like someone mentioned it in passing, and then I kind of tucked it away. And then weeks later, I finally sat down at my computer one night after another overwhelming day. And my child had refused almost everything, melted down multiple times, shut down completely, and nothing I had tried made sense. So desperate for some kind of insight, I typed pathological demand avoidance into Google. I didn't expect answers, but as I read, something inside me went very still, then softened, and then cracked open with this recognition and this relief. Like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. It was that my body recognized this truth, okay? So the fear underneath my child's refusals and the panic fueling the explosive no, and the way the smallest request could feel like danger to him, and then the shutdowns that looked like defiance but were really collapse, it all suddenly had a name, okay? And for the first time, I understood that what we were dealing with wasn't behavior, it was a survival response trying to communicate to me that my son was not feeling safe enough to comply with life's demands. So that realization led me toward reducing demands in small but hesitant steps. I loosened our routines. Okay, I stopped pushing transitions. I removed my son from school and even removed any structured learning from the equation altogether. And while these challenges did help my child feel more accepted and relieved and more safe to some degree, my own nervous system was struggling even more. If anything, the more I reduced demands on him, the more demands I increased on myself to meet his needs. And then the more fear and pressure I felt inside myself. So my anxiety rose more, my body tightened and braced more. I second guessed everything. Each accommodation created more internal fear. Like, what if I'm doing this wrong? What if he never learns? What if I'm enabling him? What if I ruin his future? What if people are judging me? What if I'm not doing enough? Okay, I hear this from all the mothers I work with. And alongside the fear, I found myself holding in my reactions more than ever, right? Biting my tongue, controlling my tone. I found myself really suppressing like my own internal activation that was happening, suppressing my frustration, trying to appear calm when I was not feeling that way inside. Okay. And on top of this, I felt I had to meet all of his needs at the expense of my own. Okay. So it was only later that I understood what was happening. Okay, lowering demands helped my child's nervous system, but it activated every survival pattern inside of my own nervous system. And the more I held in, the more I gave in and denied my needs, the more I carried, the more depleted and burnt out I became. Not because I was doing too little or even doing too much, but because I was holding too much. Okay, so this is really about holding too much. Okay, so reducing demands is essential for PDA kids. Okay, it decreases perceived threat, it increases autonomy, it reduces meltdowns, and it helps their nervous system shift towards safety. For them, fewer demands feel like relief and regulation coming on board. But for you, the opposite often happens. When you let go of the tools you were raised with, okay, structure, discipline, follow through, consistency, doing more, and oh, just do it. Okay, your nervous system may interpret this shift of lowering demands as danger. So you lose the familiar signals of safety that you grew up with, depending on, okay, you depended on those ways of being to make you feel worthy and enough. And without realizing, you enter your own survival response. So you might feel anxious, you might feel untethered, right? A bit out of control, or like the ground beneath you has disappeared, okay? Because everything is changing to this very different way of being that's so opposite what we learned growing up. And this is a polyvagal mismatch, okay? Your child's nervous system says less pressure means safety, but your nervous system says less structure and less doing means danger. Okay, so this mismatch creates an internal whiplash. Your child becomes calmer while you become more activated, but then you hold it in, and their nervous system may feel more supported while yours feels destabilized. Okay, so understanding this mismatch is essential because it explains why you might feel more overwhelmed and not less overwhelmed when you begin lowering demands. Okay, so lowering demands doesn't just change how you parent. Okay, it triggers a cascade of deeply ingrained beliefs stored in your body, beliefs that are tied to how you learned to be safe, loved, belonging, and successful growing up. And these beliefs often sound like, I'm not doing enough, I'm being too soft, good parents have more control over their child. If I don't push him, I'm failing him. Good parents have structure and expectations. He'll never learn if I don't teach or enforce things. Or people would judge me. Or I'm losing control of everything. Okay, so these beliefs don't just live in your mind, they live in your nervous system, right? They activate your nervous system. They were shaped through decades of conditioning, through family systems, schooling, cultural messages, and general expectations about obedience and productivity and responsibility and performance. So when you lower demands for your child, these beliefs become activated in the body, sometimes very intensely. Creates a lot of fear, right? This is why lowering demands can feel like you are breaking the rules of what it means to be a good parent or a successful human, right? Even when you know intellectually, or even know from from your true self, from your heart, that you are supporting your child in the most attuned, trauma-informed way possible. So most of us grew up in systems where compliance equals goodness and productivity equals worth, okay? And being easy equals love, right? Oh, this is an easy child. So easy to love because they're so easy. Like that's a big one. And that pushing through was considered strength, right? Push through, override your system. Okay, so in those environments, meeting your needs was often secondary or not allowed at all. Okay, so you may have learned to fawn, to perform, to please, to push, or to make yourself small to keep the peace or earn approval. Okay, so when you begin reducing demands for your PDA child, you're not just changing a parenting strategy, you are challenging your entire conditioning and programming. Okay, so your body interprets low demand parenting as rebellion, loss of control, a threat to your identity, breaking unspoken family or societal rules, and stepping outside of what kept you safe growing up. So this tension doesn't just live in your thoughts, okay? It lives in your fascia, your breath, your jaw, your shoulders, your posture. It's cellular and it's somatic, okay? It very much lives in your body, and it explains why your child's relief can simultaneously feel like your panic. Okay, so the part that most parents aren't prepared for is how much emotional and physiological suppression that low demand parenting requires. So when you reduce demands, you also reduce the amount of frustration, urgency, and overwhelm that you can outwardly express, right? You find yourself carefully managing your tone and your facial expressions, your language, and even your body movements. Okay, you may find yourself trying to look calm while your insides are still full of activation. You swallow your impulses to correct them or to push them. You override your instinct to speed things up or insist. You absorb your child's overwhelm without discharging your own. And this means that your body is carrying far more survival energy than it ever gets to release. Okay, so over time, this trapped activation or stress load, it builds up in the body. It shows up as irritability, resentment, exhaustion, anxiety, muscle tension, headaches, shutdown, or emotional numbness. Okay. These aren't signs of failure. They are signs of a nervous system holding too much without any way to complete the stress cycle and release the stress that constantly gets activated but gets trapped inside the body. Okay, so what I didn't understand at first, and what so many moms I work with eventually realize, is that low demand parenting doesn't just activate anxiety, it awakens old childhood survival patterns like fawning, appeasing, people pleasing, or staying small to keep the peace. Okay, so this is another aspect of what's getting triggered here. So these patterns aren't like, they're not weaknesses, right? They weren't developed because we're weak. They were brilliant survival strategies that your nervous system developed early on to stay safe in environments where your stability depended on other people's emotions. Okay. So many of us learned as children, if they're not safe, I'm not safe. Okay. So then you become the one who soothed, who softened, who adjusted yourself, who took responsibility for everyone's emotional state, not just consciously, right? But your body did this automatically. And when you begin lowering demands for your PDA child, these patterns can often become more intense. Okay, more intense. Yeah, they become exacerbated. So the more you work to reduce pressure for your child, the more you may silence your own needs, the more you may soften your own boundaries, the more you may shapeshift, right? Shapeshift yourself to avoid triggering them and take responsibility for their emotional world. Okay, we do that a lot, especially as mothers. And this happens because your child's overwhelm activates old trauma physiology. Your nervous system reacts as if you're back in those early environments where someone else's distress meant danger. And without realizing, you start abandoning yourself again. Okay, and this creates another layer of burnout. You're not only holding in survival energy, you're also losing connection to your own needs, your own identity, and your inner world. Okay, so your child and your body often need the opposite things at the same time. Okay, in this scenario, your child needs autonomy, space, freedom, choice, and minimal pressure, but your nervous system may need more structure and predictability and reassurance and clarity and boundaries to feel safe. So this creates a painful internal conflict. Like, how do I meet their needs without abandoning mine, right? You're trying to hold safety for your child while your own body is struggling to find safety itself. So this conflict is not a mindset issue. It is the collision of two nervous systems with different survival strategies. So this mismatch creates chronic tension inside you, which becomes a major driver of burnout. Okay. So let's just understand what really causes burnout in PDA parenting. Okay. Burnout in PDA parenting is not caused by doing too little. And I would say it's not even caused by doing too much. It comes from a double survival load. Okay. So, number one, holding in your survival reactions, right? We have to hold in our survival reactions. So, we're going to automatically have survival reactions when our child activates fight, flight, freeze, right? And there's no release for it. Okay. The fight and flight energy gets trapped inside of our bodies because we clamp down on it and we hold it in. And holding in your survival reactions done enough times leads to more shutdown, and that's where burnout lives. Okay, number two, increasing accommodations. This means like more attunement, you have to be more flexible, and it's a lot more emotional labor, right? More staying on for your child as well. Okay, more staying on for them. And then number three aspect of causing burnout is that meeting your child's intense needs at the expense of your own. Okay. So the feeling like you can't meet your needs and you have to give up your needs, it feels like a place of no choice, a place of I'm trapped. Okay. So that's a big part of, burnout, feeling that way. And then sustaining a constant internal conflict between old conditioning and new parenting demands. Okay. So that old conditioning gets triggered all the time, creating more fight flight energy. And then these new parenting demands of I have to be this way in order for my child to be okay. It's a lot. It's a lot. Okay. And this is nervous system burnout. It's not just emotional exhaustion. It happens because your body is stuck in survival physiology, either activated or collapsed, without enough moments to release activation or receive nourishment, right? Nourishment going into that rest, repair state. So parents need rest, but rest is often not available in long stretches. Okay, so the path forward is really learning how to release trapped survival energy, take in micro moments of nourishment and rest, little moments done often. Okay, and then let the nervous system turn off briefly in terms of not having to stay on, but really turn off and rest more in little moments, and then reconnecting with your own needs in little moments as well, and then rebuilding internal structure that supports you without placing pressure on your child. So it's a dance, it's a real dance to meet your needs and meet their needs. So when you don't have the pressure valves, of like clamping in all of that stress energy, right? The pressure valves to help release all of the stress energy that you're holding in, then burnout becomes inevitable. Okay. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because your nervous system has been carrying more than any one person ever should have to hold. Okay. So these are also patterns from our childhood, learning to like clamp down on our stress energy and not finding or understanding what are safe ways to release all of this. Okay, so let's talk about rebuilding safety without abandoning yourself. Okay, so the solution isn't to push your child or to tighten demands, right? We know that. It's really to rebuild your internal safety so that lowering demands doesn't feel like chaos inside of your body. And this means learning how to gently complete stress cycles, right? Allowing movement of that stress energy, not clamping it in, allowing movement of this. And this could be like shaking it off, allowing the tears to flow, so crying, orienting to things that bring you comfort and allowing yourself moments to just not be in stress and take in something that feels more comforting to you, right? That will help naturally and safely discharge that survival energy. And it also means repairing the deeper survival pattern underneath all of this, okay? The one that was learned in childhood, that you had to stay small, pleasing, accommodating, or emotionally responsible for others in order to stay safe, right? Deep patterns. And these patterns weren't your fault. They were brilliant strategies that your nervous system created to protect you, but they can get reactivated and exacerbated in PDA parenting, leaving you to abandon your own needs without even realizing it. Okay. So there is the reality of, yes, our child has a lot of needs and it takes a lot from us, right, to meet those needs. But it's also the realization of a deeper pattern that exists here that's contributing to this, contributing to carrying this load, to this feeling of feeling trapped, to this feeling of like it's either me or them and I can't meet my needs. Okay, that's old. That's old and comes from your childhood. And part of rebuilding safety now is gently teaching your body a new truth that you can be okay even when someone else isn't. Okay, that you can be okay even if your child isn't. This is a big one to work on. Okay, it also means giving yourself small moments of support, not big dramatic self-care, right? Yes, that would be great. And if you have time to do that, great. But it's really, the reality is we're there so much for our children, especially those of us whose kids don't go to school and you're with them all the time, right? But can you give yourself little tiny drops of nourishment throughout the day, right? A moment to breathe more slowly, or a moment to just unclench your jaw, like notice what's going on inside of you too, right? And give yourself a cue of safety. Maybe relaxing your shoulders, maybe stepping outside for a moment of air, or letting yourself pause without the guilt. Okay. So rebuilding safety is both a somatic and emotional process. So it's very much a body-based process. It involves challenging old beliefs at the body level and not just through the mindset alone, and learning how to co-regulate in a way that doesn't require self-abandonment. Okay. And it requires slowly increasing your capacity in ways that honor both you and your child. And this is not easy, but it is possible. Okay. So parenting a PDA child is not about perfection. It's really about presence, attunement, and compassion for both your child and for yourself. Okay. So your child isn't refusing you, they're protecting yourself, right? And most of us are realizing that. It's a hard one because our old conditioning comes in there, but most of us are realizing that. Okay. But we also need to realize that you're not falling apart because you're doing it wrong, okay? You're really unlearning decades of conditioning, holding emotional labor for two nervous systems, grieving the parenting story that you thought you'd have, and you're rebuilding safety from the inside out. This is not easy, right? This is not easy work. This is like the work of warriors. That's what I say. So lowering demands didn't break you. It's really, maybe you feel like it broke you, okay? But the way I see it is that it's really awakening everything inside of you that has been waiting to be acknowledged, soothed, and healed. Okay, so our children are guiding us to this, to healing ourselves, So if you feel overwhelmed, chaotic, or like you're losing yourself, it doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're doing profoundly hard, transformative work, okay? Breaking generational patterns and learning to create safety for both your child and yourself. You are not failing, okay? You are healing, you are evolving, and you are becoming the parent your child needs and the parent that you needed too. So if this helped you, please share with others. Please leave a comment. And I hope this helped you in your day today. Thanks so much for listening to The Regulated Mother. If this episode helped you feel a little more seen, grounded, or hopeful, I'd love for you to share it with another mom who might need it too. And if you want more nervous system tools and support, head to my website, illuminateyou.ca, to grab my free ebook and video series. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You're doing brave and meaningful work.